Welcome, friends, to this video. We're going to cover part 3 in our Python basics from learnpython.org. So if you haven't checked out the other 2 videos, they are on the YouTube channel. And today we're going to cover the last 4: functions, classes and objects, dictionaries, and modules and packages. And if you want to, you can do these on your own at learnpython.org, or you can watch this tutorial and I will go over some of these in my interpretation. So let's go ahead and get started with the first one in functions. All right, so here is just an example of how a function looks. Is basically you're going to have a function on your first line, and everything under the function then it shows is going to be indented. So let's actually take a look at a function. So here we have my function, and then inside that we're going to do something. All right, and then here is the next example of another function. We can pass in 2 parameters inside there, and then this one is going to print out those as variables. So we'll have the first one and the second one, we'll pass in those parameters. And we'll run these in a second so you can see what that looks like. The next one here we have is basically like a way to do some addition on some numbers. So we have similar situation, but this time integers, A and B, and then we'll sum those and return that value. All right, and now let's go ahead and call those functions. So we have the first one is my function, so we should be able to print out this one. The next one here is with some arguments, and so we'll pass in some arguments and print that one out. And then the next one is some sum, we'll give it some numbers and print that out. So here we're just going to call my function. Here we're going to pass some arguments, and here we're going to pass some numbers. So if we go ahead and run that, let's see, I need to get out of my Python there. Now let's run it. We have hello my function, and then hello John Doe for my function. I wish you a great year. And then we didn't actually print this one, so if we just print X and run it again, we get 3. So that's how we call functions. All right, now let's go ahead and do the exercise that they gave us. So in this one, we're actually going to be using functions that call other functions. So we have 2 here, and then we're going to actually call those in this last function. So the first one is a list of benefits, and what we have here is just a few examples inside of what we'll create as a list. So we have more organized code, we have more readable code, easier code to reuse, and allowing programmers to share and connect code together. Then we're going to build a sentence. So we're going to call that one and basically pass in this variable benefit. Inside that function, we're going to get a string result. And then here is our function that we built that's going to call those. So we've called it name function of benefits, which we're going to execute right down here. And then we're going to say everything inside of this function, which is this list here, we're going to store it in list of benefits. All right, and then we're going to loop through it. So we're going to basically say this is a benefit, this is a benefit, this is a benefit. We're going to loop through each one of those, and we're going to print it out. So what we're going to say is each one inside of here, print and call this build sentence. So if you can imagine, we're going to basically make this benefit as the variable and print this sentence. So if we go ahead and run it, we'll get more organized code as a benefit of the function. And we'll just keep doing that each time for each iteration inside of this list that we've created. All right, that is going to complete the functions. So let's move on to looking at classes. So classes is a way to store objects and variables and functions. And basically this is kind of what it would look like. So we have class, we have a variable, we have a function inside of there. So let's go ahead and we can call that. So what we're doing here is we're storing my object X, and we're going to call my class, and then we can call inside of my class by using my object X, which is a variable, or is what we've assigned to my class, and then we can call inside of their variable. And so if we go ahead and print, we should get my object X, which is part of my class, and then we should get the blah right here. So if we go ahead and run it, I probably did something when I was selecting here. Yes, I did. All right, and so we go ahead and run it, we get blah. We can also do a second object inside of the same class, but this time, instead of calling it within the class, we can even call it outside the class. So here we've done my object Y variable, and we've assigned yakety. And then we're still calling my object class variable blah. So here my object variable, going to go inside the class, get blah, and then this my object variable is going to call the one that we've assigned. So if we run it, we get blah and we get yakety. All right, now how do we access a function? So here's our function. Instead of the variable, very similar. Instead of dot variable, we do dot function, and then we add the two parentheses to call the function. And if we run it, then we get the function, this message inside the class. All right, let's do the example so we can see how all this works. All right, so inside what we have here is a class vehicle. And inside classes, typically we have some key value pairs. So we have name, kind, color, value. And what we're going to do is call function, and this function we're going to create a string. And inside the string, we're going to pass these key value pairs. So we have name, color, kind, and value. Then down here, what we're going to do is call it. So we have car1 as our first example. We're going to call the vehicle class. And inside, we're going to pass in car name, color, kind, and value. And same thing here, we're going to do for car2. We're going to give it different ones, passing in the name, color, kind, and value. And then down here, this is where we actually run it or show it to the screen. So car1 description. So we come up here, car1, which is vehicle, which then comes up to vehicle. And then inside vehicle, we're calling the description, which is going to print out the description of each one of these objects. So if we run it, we're going to get fur is the convertible worth 60,000 and jump is the blue van worth 10,000. All right, that concludes the classes and objects. Now let's take a look at dictionaries. And there's a lot more to these than what I'm sharing. These are just kind of the very minimum basics, but you'll be using these, so it's good to know what they are and then dig deeper into them later. All right, so a dictionary is represented by the curly braces, and in other languages could be called hash map, but it basically is a way to store values. For example, we have John, we have John's phone number, we have Jack, we have Jill. And so if we run that, we should get all of these values that are stored within the dictionary. So this is one way that we could do it. Probably a more common way that we could do this is have the values within the curly braces. So John, Jack, and Jill. If we run it, it will output the same way. And there is even another way you could, if you want to do it on a single line, you can do it on a single line. And then one way, let's go and get an example of how we can actually pull from this dictionary. So if we want to do extract something from there, we can loop through this. So here's a for loop. And what we're going to do is name and number. So we're going to actually do both of these. So this is going to be our first variable. This is going to be our second variable, name and then number, inside a phone book item. So inside a phone book, these items, we're going to print. So another string is first variable name, first variable number. So if we print it, then we will get the string phone number as first variable, second variable, and it'll iterate through each one. So this would be the first iteration, second, and third. And then it's printed out those three. What if we want to remove something from the string? What we can do is delete or del, and then phone book will delete John from there, and it will delete both the key and the value and give us back what is left. Another way that we could do that is also pop. This is probably the easier way, that more common I would see, is pop and then remove that method or that object that you want. So John is no longer in there. And now let's go ahead and do an exercise so we can see how all this works. So we have the same phone book of these John, Jack, and Jill. What we're going to do is we're going to add Jake into the phone book, and we're going to delete Jill, and then we're going to check it out. So if Jake is in phone book, which we just added, it should print he is listed. And if Jill is not in the phone book, which we just deleted, then we're going to print Jill is not in the phone book. So if we run it, we do get Jake is listed and Jill is not listed. All right, let's move on to our last one, the modules and packages. So here is just an example of what it might look like inside a directory. So you might have the directory of my game, and then inside of my game, you might have the modules, game.py or draw.py. So that's just an example of what they would look like. Now let's show you what an example import would be. So import draw. So this would be something that you would import, and then this is where it gets called. So let's say your main function is here, and then it will eventually get to drawing this and using that, and it'll call from the import that you have imported earlier on. So that's what package would look like. Another example, let's see. Oh yeah, just to show you what draw, they're showing you what draw looks like. So this would be a function within draw. So we just call draw, and so there might be this function draw game, there might be this function here, clear screen. All right, so inside the namespace, we can import something more specific. So from draw, this might be the larger module, we can import the function draw game. And so that way we would save on resources. We wouldn't have to do the entire one. We can do just the function that we need. And so instead we would call just draw game instead of draw. If we wanted to import all, then we would do a from draw import star. And that would import all functions from the draw module. Now, if we want to do a custom, which I have not seen a lot of this, but it is possible. So let's say we're going to do draw again. And then if we want to, let's say, do visual draw, this is a custom, then we can import just draw visual. And as is a kind of a shortcut. So we would just rename it as draw. Or if we don't want draw visual, if that's not called, then we could say, if everything else, import draw textual and name it the same as draw, and we're still calling draw. So this would be a kind of a custom way that we could import either one of these. All right, and then let's move on to how we initialize a module. So this one here is basically just saying that once we initialize it once, like for example, the clear screen, we don't need to initialize it again. So once it's already done it once, and if it's being called again, then it's already imported. So it basically what they're saying here is it's only going to be done once. All right, and then a couple areas of where these are imported. So inside your environment variable, what it's going to do is when it runs this Python game, then it's going to look in the path of foo. And so you want to make sure that's one way that you can find the packages in this directory. This is on the operating system level. Another one here is you can do a syspath append. So this is looking in your system path, and then appending this directory foo. All right, so let's go ahead and now look at how you can use the built-in modules. So let's say we're going to import URL lib. Then the URL lib is an example. We could say URL lib.URL open is a function, and then whatever parameters we're going to pass in there. So let's kind of show you what it looks like here. If we do Python enter there, and we say import URL lib, this is what it's going to do. And then if we want to look more into it, so we could say dir URL lib or lib, and then it's going to give the functions here. It's going to give us what they are. And if we want to do help, and let's say we'll just pick out _doc and close parentheses. Whoop. Close parentheses instead of that, it's going to give us back more information about that function. All right, and then okay, let's go ahead and do the exercise to show you, kind of recap what we did there. So what we're going to do is import the regex module, and then what we're going to do is we're going to store all of the, let's go ahead and loop through that. So if you can imagine, we have the list here, and we're going to loop through each one of these, and then we're going to do a find, or we're going to look inside of those and look for find. And then if we see anything, we're going to add that, which is append, into this empty list find members. And so member is our iteration through there. And then we're going to print it out. So basically, we're going to look through here and see if there's anything find. So if we run that, we find all and find iteration. So just kind of show you how this works. So if I did Python, and then if I did import RE and dir RE, should be find, yeah, find all and find iteration. All right, so hopefully that helps. I did skip one of them right before this, the writing packages, which I didn't really find too helpful. But yeah, if you want to go through all these, feel free. They're really helpful. It doesn't take a long time, but they do help you kind of grasp for what the important concepts are in Python. All right, well, thanks for watching. That concludes learnpython.org. So I'll probably be making more videos from other areas that I'm learning Python. So stick around for more videos. Hope to see you in the future. So long.